Welcome to another episode of Electable, sponsored by Indiana Women's Action Movement. We are in a timely discussion today about the rights of the LGBTQ plus community, which is a huge and complicated conversation in Indiana. But luckily, I am joined by two amazing experts on this topic. Kathleen DeLaney, an attorney in Indianapolis, who's representing plaintiffs in a wrongful termination suits that we'll get more information on, and Senator J.D. Ford from Indiana Senate. And what district are you from? I'm sorry, J.D.
District 29.
29, great. So who has a lot of experience with the legislative aspect of LGBTQ plus rights. So, I really want to start with you, Kathleen, because I want to right away really emphasize the impact of what's happening and the ability of religious institutions to discriminate against LGBTQ plus community members. So tell us about the cases that you're handling now.
Okay, great. Again, my name is Kathleen DeLaney. I'm an attorney in Indianapolis with the law firm of DeLaney and DeLaney, and our firm is honored to be representing two plaintiffs in two separate cases. We represent Lynn Starkey, who spent more than 30 years, her whole adult life, working at Roncalli High School in Indianapolis before she was fired for being in a same-sex marriage. We also represent Joshua Payne Elliott, who taught language and social studies at Cathedral High School for more than a decade when he was fired for being in a same-sex marriage at the direction of the Archdiocese of Indianapolis. So we have one case in federal court, one case in state court, and we're trying to vindicate their rights in these cases. And from our point of view, there are both legal bases for these claims as well as moral bases for these claims. And the legal issues are complex, and that's part of what we're here to talk about today. But from our point of view, the moral issue really is simple, and that is, this is not how we treat people. And we really should not be discriminating against people on the basis of their sexual orientation. And we don't believe that the church's attitude towards these issues is appropriate or lawful. And in the litigation, the church is literally taking the position that they're above the law and that the law doesn't apply to them, and that they are looking for a license to discriminate against their teachers. And these cases impact not just the teachers who I represent, but all the other gay teachers out there, not just at Catholic schools, but who work in Catholic hospitals and all kinds of institutions. The Catholic Church employs literally millions of people across the country. It also affects the students who attend those schools and watch as their beloved teachers are walked out like criminals for no good reason, after literally decades of distinguished service to the schools. So the students who are part of the LGBTQ plus community have been devastated by what they've witnessed as well. So it is a significant problem, and we're proud to be representing our clients in these cases.
That is amazing. And I always wonder about young people. I think young people now really, it's not like they have a false illusion that LGBTQ plus community members are protected. I don't think they have a really naive illusion, but they do have a very strong assumption that they should be protected. And, that's just the generation that's coming up. I worked with young women in middle school, and who one of them came up and, was able to talk about being bisexual. And I was like, wow, I don't even, when I was in middle school, I don't even know if that was a thing. And it was, but that's how young people are now, wholly aware of the nuances of the sexual spectrum. And so I can't imagine what those students are going through, because I know that they really feel strongly about this issue. So, and I hope this case goes well. Like you said, I think the crux of it is the religious institutions who believe that they can do whatever they want and punish whoever they want without any recourse. So, so now, Senator J.D. Ford, I want to turn to you for a minute because, and Kathleen has pointed out to me earlier that this case does not have anything to do with RFRA. That is the Religious Freedom Restoration Act that was passed in Indiana in 2015 and then amended a year later. But it is an important piece of legislation that we live with in Indiana. And so, JD, I know that you are a historical expert on this. And, I want to ask you first, was RFRA, did that have anything to do with your running for state senate?
It factored in there, but so I ran for the Senate twice, as you know, once in 2014 where I lost by 2,000 votes, and then once again in 2018. And so, in 2014 when I was running, the state actually was taking up HJR 3 and HJR 6, and this was the state's attempt to define marriage between one man and one woman and to put that into the state constitution. Now, that was beat back by some grassroots organizers from Freedom, Indiana. Thanks to all those folks who did that, and the legislators who casted the vote to beat that back. And so that was in 2014. Well, then the very next year in 2015, we saw the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, which I think was another mean-spirited attempt to try and beat back the LGBTQ plus community. And so we saw. We saw essentially our state go into a tailspin because of the fact that we had those legislators that were pushing these extreme views in the state house. And you go out and ask folks, and I just believe that that's not a priority that we should have taken up, and that was in 2015. So that was right after I ran in 2014. And then, yeah, of course, that factored into my decision to do this again, because I just thought to myself, gosh, we need to have more folks in the state house who are going to be pushing policies that better folks, that, have a good paying job at better schools, be able to put food on the table. We don't need, this bill that's going to, essentially be a license to discriminate against Hoosiers, and so I think for me.
Tell us the impact of RFRA on on Hoosiers. Was it really, like you said, the discrimination was as consumers but not as employees?
Yeah, so it was Religious Freedom Restoration Act is what it was called, right? But it could have been used for multiple things. I mean, we heard a lot about, businesses shouldn't be forced to be able to do things, and what we were saying as part of the LGBTQ plus community is that, we want to support your business. We want to go in there and give our money to you. But at the same time, we don't want you to turn around and say, well, we don't serve your kind here, and so, we want to be recognized just like everybody else, did. And so, so essentially it got so bad that, the Indianapolis Star, the largest paper in our state, front page said, fix this now. And so that's how much of in a tailspin we were. We had concert artists pulling up out of here. We had Gen Con, which is like, you can't get a hotel room within an hour of Indianapolis because Gen Con provides that much money and that much people come to our city to celebrate Gen Con. We had the governors of different states banning travel to the state of Indiana because, we were seen as a backward state. And so, we had the economic impacts were just terrible, and so, so for me, that fix was essentially kind of quelled everything. To me, it didn't go far enough, but that's okay. I was able to live with it. I was just happy that our state was, being taken out of the national news for how backwards we were. But essentially, it allowed local municipalities to pass an ordinance, to have a human rights ordinance if they so choose. So we saw Zionsville, part of the district that I represent. We saw Carmel already do that. Indianapolis had already had one on the books for the past 10 years prior to that. So they were well ahead of their time. But yeah, I mean, RFRA was a terrible thing. And I think we are still reeling with the effects. Now, my friends on the other side would disagree with that, but I still think that we still have a little bit of that reputation of us being backwards because of that RFRA bill.
Right. So, so Kathleen, I think your lawsuits, let's say, so they're based on kind of different laws, the different cases. But should you succeed, what does that mean? What will that mean for, employment situations for LGBTQ plus community members?
Well, hopefully we will succeed in both cases. And if we do, then the law will be clearer in this area, and hopefully it will discourage the types of discrimination that my clients experienced. Because if the employers making the decisions about who to hire, who to fire, understand that there are adverse consequences for violating the law, then that creates a disincentive to them violating the law in the next instance. So it should, would, and could have a very positive effect, in particular for educators in Catholic schools, who many of whom are working in fear now, wondering if they're going to be the next ones to be fired, because these two clients are not the only two educators in Catholic schools who are in same-sex marriages. I mean, that's just simply not the case. And someone who I don't represent, but the first person to be targeted at Roncalli High School was literally outed by somebody sending her marriage license downtown to the Catholic headquarters. And so that type of thing engenders fear among the employee ranks. And so hopefully that would also go away if we were able to prevail in our cases.
And so now, JD, is there legislation that you've thought of or introduced, or, is there a legislative way to fix this?
Yeah, and I think going back to what Kathleen just mentioned, and she touched upon, that students seeing their teachers being walked out of like criminals, that really plays on their on their mental health, right? And we know that LGBTQ students in our state are 6 times more likely to, to have suicidal ideations. And to have that and to see that and to know that they're not going to be loved or protected is just ludicrous. It goes everything against what the Catholic Church teaches. I'm Catholic. I can openly say that. I'm a struggling Catholic because, I feel like every time the church takes a step forward, we take 5 steps backwards. But, yes, I did file legislation because part of the reason that these private institutions, educational institutions, are able to operate is because of these voucher dollars. And we do not have enough regulations, rules, procedures around these dollars. These institutions are benefiting from taxpayer dollars, your dollars, our dollars, and turning around and, terminating these folks simply because of who they are, simply because of their existence. Not for performance-based, not because of, it's because of they're in a same-sex marriage. And by the way, that's the law of the land, the last that I checked. So, I think that we are mixing, and our Supreme Court, did take up this issue, but their interpretation of it, to me, it's very slippery. They basically said, oh, well, it's not necessarily, the school's not getting the money. The money follows the student, which then follows, the parents then give that money to the school. So that's how we're able to get through this.
Well, but
that's the wrong interpretation.
But Senator Ford, I mean, you can fix that in the legislature. You can redo the voucher law in order to address the argument that the Supreme Court used.
Yeah, and I tried to do that twice. Unfortunately, those bills did not get a hearing. And so that's where we need the public, where all of you who are watching today, to speak up to your senator and to your representative to make your voice heard. Right.
It should be a condition of qualification for receipt of voucher dollars that you comply with the law of the land. Pretty basic, why would you give an organization money to, improve their sewers or sidewalks around their property if they're going to not allow persons of color onto their property? I mean, it's a similar analogy. I see it.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, I spent many years in early childhood, and I spent many years trotting down to the State House to complain about religious-based preschools who did not have, hardly any regulation, and who, who got a lot of state dollars through the early childhood or childcare CCDF funds. And so, and I guess in this situation, those people could also be firing staff who do not, comply with their heterosexual requirements. So, that's very interesting. So, okay, so what can we do next? So, Kathleen, you've given us a couple of ideas, but give us, what can we do? What can we do specifically to help your clients and in your case?
Well, I don't know that there's a lot that can be done from, the court of public opinion with regard to the legal battles, but being outspoken on these issues and offering support and encouragement to my clients is certainly valued and appreciated, because these are life-changing events. If you get fired because of who you are and who you love, and for no performance-based reason whatsoever, it really can rock you to your core and have a ripple effect on your life and your relationships and just your well-being overall. So knowing that they're supported and encouraged is really helpful, because there are also people on the other side of this issue, and some of them are filled with hate. And we've had hate mail, hate voicemails, hate emails. And so getting, the positive encouragement is certainly helpful to offset that type of inappropriate behavior.
And in your, while you're working with these teachers, is there any issue coming up concerning students in the LGBTQ plus community? Are they also having problems in these Catholic schools?
Well, if there were a student in a Catholic high school who was a voucher recipient, who felt that he or she or they were experiencing a hostile environment in school because of their sexual orientation, that student could have a legal claim under Title IX of the federal law. And if there are students out there in that situation and they need help, then they should get legal help, because that type of a case could be another way to go at the voucher program.
Wow. Well, that's something we can do. I mean, that's something we can look out for and talk about with students and families. And so tell me, what are the next steps now in your cases?
Well, so in both cases, the local Archdiocese has brought in lawyers from Washington, D.C., from a nonprofit issue-oriented group called the Beckett Fund. And they are handling the case as if it were a religious crusade, literally. That's how it feels on our side of the V. So they file motion after motion. When they lose, they ask for reconsideration. When they lose that, they ask for immediate appeal. When they lose that, they try a writ of mandamus. I mean, they're pulling out all the stops and, in my view, really stretching the bounds of acceptable procedure. So they are doing their level best to slow the pace of both of our cases and drag this out as long as they can. And there are strategic reasons for them to do that. And so we just have to be patient and, let the courts have the time to get it right. But then layer onto that the COVID pandemic and the courts being closed, and we have this clogged funnel of cases and trial dates getting backed up. So we're in a waiting and holding pattern at this precise moment, waiting on legal rulings in both cases. But we have a trial date in August for Lynn Starkey's case, but the Archdiocese has already moved to postpone the trial again, and that's going to have to be decided in short order. So there's nothing going to happen tomorrow or next week, or there could be, because the courts get around to ruling on their own timetable, and it's not opaque to us. So not really sure when the next big ruling will come out, but that's what we're waiting for.
Okay. So I want to bring up this other topic now, and JD, I don't know if you have had, I'm sure you're both aware of this, what's happening. And when you mentioned this national firm from Washington, it reminded me about, some people are calling them purple people, and I'm not sure where that comes from or what the etiology of that term is, but there's some nationalized organizations who are going around to school corporations and school boards and getting parents to speak out against critical race theory. But even more than that, because I'm staying on topic today, they are asking parents to submit forms where they opt out of any information being shared with their child about LGBTQ community people or anything, and also about reproductive health, of course. And so it was really alarming to me. I had really looked into the case that was in Hamilton County, Clay schools. And it seemed like they all of a sudden they came from nowhere. And then I looked at their website and I'm like, wow, this is a really well done website. Somebody spent some money on this, and really dug into it more. And their call to action to parents was to bring your child to school late, and when asked about it, to tell them that you're late because you don't want your child to participate in any SEL or other, of course, critical race theory education. And as part of that, they want to also, as I said, to ask parents to fill out these forms, opting out of any information. So JD, what the
Yeah. So can I back up and say that when Kathleen was talking about that Beckett Fund, the Indianapolis started an article on, the tactics that these people are using. Now, don't forget, these folks are called God's Rottweilers, right? Because that's how they are. They're just always, I guess the attack dogs for the religious right. So, let's. I want to make sure that put that out there as well. So. But this critical race theory stuff is a manufactured to get everyone all fired up about something that really isn't much of anything. Critical race theory, and maybe Kathleen would know this is a law school class. This is an upper graduate level school class. I've spoken to the superintendents in my area. They said, Senator Ford, we are not teaching this. And so really, what this boils down to is to get everyone all hyped up for the 22 elections, as well as a moneymaker for my friends on the other side. That's what this boils down to. And, for me, those purple parents, they suffered a huge loss at the State House. I mean, they were at the State House pushing, a pretty terrible bill on, the bill was called Harmful Materials for Children. And so, of course, you're like, gosh, we got to do everything we can to protect our kids. But then these parents come in there, and the testimony is so charged up. And, you walk away, and even myself, I walked away, I was like, oh my gosh, we got to do something about this. But then you start to look into things, and you start to look into their examples, and their examples don't add up. And one of the tactics that these purple parents do is that they will go to the school board early. They will sign up for the first 20 slots to speak. They put their purple shirts, and take up all the seats. So if you're a parent and you happen to just stumble into the board meeting that day, and you think to yourself, oh my goodness, what's going on? So I will simply say this: if it seems organized, it is. Follow the money. And in this particular case, in the Carmel case, the Carmel situation, the Unified Carmel folks had their paperwork filed with the Secretary of State's office by a Chicago-based attorney who is a total person that believes in the Federalist Society and all this other far right stuff. And so I just think that unfortunately the folks that I represent in Hamilton and Boone counties and in my Senate district, they're onto these folks, and they're not going to have it. And I think we'll see. But can I take that a step further and say,
absolutely,
yeah, I think this is a very well thought out battle plan to further take money away from our public schools, because like you just said, I don't want my kids learning about that. So that's why we need to put more money into our private schools and give more money to vouchers. And I also think we'll see school board elections be very partisan. Now, we've never had partisan elections for school boards in Indiana because our thought and philosophy was, well, it shouldn't be politics. It shouldn't be a Republican or Democrat issue. We should just educate our kids. But now, because of this critical race theory, I think we're going to start seeing that be a partisan election next year.
Well, and I agree that, you're absolutely right. And the critical race theory is the top one. but I think it is lumped in with, I think the LGBTQ issues are going to be part of that, strategy. Yeah, and of course, reproductive health issues as well. So, and I've mentioned it before, but I was surprised, when I was out last year, recruiting Democratic women to run for state legislature. I happened to meet a young woman, and I was telling her what I was doing, and she goes, "Oh, I do that too." I said, "Oh, really? You're recruiting people to run?" She said, "Yeah, I recruit people to run for school board." And I was like, "Oh, well, that's so interesting." And so I took her card, and as you would just, as my little paranoid mind would think, and it turned out, yeah, she's working for a large for-profit corporation that runs and owns a bunch of charter schools. And so they're, hiring staff to go out and recruit people who support charter schools to run for school board. So, and that, so yeah, they're on the case, which is, frightening. It's just frightening. But, I guess what I'm saying is I worry that, I think we're kind of on top of this critical race theory. It is, I went to law school. I never heard of critical race theory in law school. So I don't know, maybe I was sick that day. Anyway, but I can't imagine, people seem to be onto this, like at the Clay High School, the lovely outcome was that parents would not have it. They showed up and they put that stuff down. They said, "We're not doing that." So that's great. And I think that is going to be what happens. But I worry about, the next issue. So the next one's going to be the LGBTQ issue. That's going to be rolled into that strategy. I know are you the only LGBTQ community member in the State House or in the Senate?
Yeah, the only one in the General Assembly. It's a very lonely role. I'd love to have more friends, but I definitely have a lot of allies.
I'd be willing to bet you're not the only one. You're just the only one who says it out loud. Right.
The only out person. Yeah. So, well, that's great. And so I want to ask, how is it? Is there a problem? Do you get any bad vibes, or is everybody supportive?
Yeah, I would say so. I'm also the youngest member of the Senate. So I do get some microaggressions with "oh, you're too young, you don't know," or, just stuff like that. But it just makes me do my homework and, work harder. But for the most part, I have good relationships with my colleagues. And, and I think what's most important to share is that representation matters. And I'm able to go over to my colleague and say, "Why are you filing this bill? Do you know that the impact that you're going to have on kids, particularly the trans kids who, look to us as policymakers to protect them?" And, up until my arrival, for example, the hate crimes bill, up until my arrival, no one spoke on the Senate floor or the House floor, for that matter, about how a hate crimes bill could or could not affect me, and so I think just being able, and I'm very proud that, Indiana had some targeted anti-trans legislation at the beginning of this session, and my friends and advocates and community activists worked really hard behind the scenes, so some of that stuff never saw the light of day. But rest assured, that stuff is coming back, particularly next year when it's election year. So I encourage everyone to stay very vigilant on that front.
Right. That's my fear as well. And I just want to say, you are setting such a beautiful example for people in the community to, to follow your path, to, see an issue, understand it, and step up and represent for those issues. And I know you always do.
And a quick shout out to Kathleen, because the stuff that we can't do in the General Assembly, we need good lawyers out there that are willing to take up the fight and fight for our community. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is it is a lot of incredible work. And I know when you say that they're stalling, what part of that is actually trying to starve, they're trying to starve you, starve your clients.
Oh, nobody's gonna wear me down or make me give up. That's not in my core. So that's not, if they clearly don't know who they're dealing with, if that's the strategy.
That is just incredible. Are there other organizations who are supporting your work? I'm not even sure who.
Well, we have friends out there. We've had incredible support. There's a group of LGBTQ plus group of law students at my alma mater, Indiana University Bloomington Maurer School of Law, has come together and done volunteer research and writing for us as a team, which is wonderful to have backup for our internal team. So that's been great. We have collaboration from some nonprofit issue organizations around the country. We get people who wrote amicus or friend of the court briefs for us when the time came for that. So yes, we're not an island. It's not just DeLaney and DeLaney against the Catholic Church at large. but
Not that wouldn't be enough. But.
Right, exactly. So
well, that's wonderful. And I'm just so glad to hear about your cases and to hear, you know, your determination and hope for those cases, because I think so far, you know, the press coverage that I've seen is pretty much like, nope, they got kicked out. You know, they got kicked out.
You know,
so.
there are a lot of nuances to these cases, and the local news media, traditional news media, really doesn't have the reporters or the resources that they used to have. There's no courthouse beat reporter anymore, for example. So it's understandable that they kind of take it at the surface level and don't dig deeper to understand. And what ends up happening is that, you know, there have been 2 occasions where I have learned about a ruling in one of my cases from a reporter who got a press release from the Beckett Fund when the court order hadn't even hit my email yet. So they're writing stories based upon press releases that are basically copy and paste jobs of press releases with a thrown in comment or 2 from our side if they reach out and get us. So that's the way the reporting is happening. It's unfortunate, but that's the reality that we have now.
Well, and that is just frightening to think that they have the resources to have a press release prepared before, you know, so that they can feed it to the press.
Right, and get ahead of the
from their perspective.
All that, yeah. But yeah, I mean, that's part of their strategy.
It is. Well, I just admire, you know, your confidence and your competence and your determination. And I just think that's just wonderful. You're doing a great job.
Thank you. And I appreciate you inviting me on and giving us an opportunity to talk about these issues. And I'm honored to be with Senator Ford as well. And I value the work you're doing in the State House.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Last question. Senator Ford, is there legislation that we should look for coming up in the next session, something we can get our teeth into?
Yeah, you know, so right now I'm kind of just, you know, wiping the sweat off my brow from this last session. It was a doozy. I will share that with you. And so I'm looking forward to kind of, you know, figuring out what we need to do for next session. Now, this past session, I did have my ban on conversion therapy, which made national news. And that is a practice that we need to get out of our state. And so I might have a return of that. I might have a return of the you know, prohibition of taxpayer dollars in our private schools. So I'm not quite sure if we're going to do that, but my focus, what I'd like to turn to now, and that is protecting our trans youth. Now, we saw the Supreme Court say that they're not going to take up the bathroom bills. We saw that the Supreme Court, you know, has given us some employment protections as well as marriage equality, but the work definitely continues. And actually, I do want to give a quick shout out to my friends who put on the Hamilton County Pride event this past weekend, where over 2,000 people attended, and those were high school students.
That's right.
That put on that Pride event. And so to me, our young folks are leading the way, and in a big way. And so just trying to kind of sit back and figure out what. So I will definitely file something on behalf of the community, just not sure quite yet. So and again, happy Pride to all the folks out there.
Yeah, and I just want to add to that. I have been keeping track, and I am just overjoyed to see Pride Fests popping up around this state in the smallest communities and counties for the first time ever. Johnson County, which isn't really a small county, first time ever Pride Fest. Du Bois County, Tipton County, Grant County, Putnam County. So wow, you know, so from
I hope somebody's there getting all those youth registered to vote.
Yes, you're right. I did not see voter registration at that event. I went to your Carmel event. That's right.
There
need
there
to-
was a few,
Oh,
booths.
Legal Women Voters was there.
Yeah.
So yeah,
there
okay, good. They were doing it.
I don't know if everybody was doing it, but there were some, but Kathleen, you're right. And I think that's another important message, is that if this community was registered to vote, we would be a powerful voting bloc in our state.
Not just registered, but actually showing up to vote.
Registered and vote.
Right. Register and show up.
Right.
Yeah, those are two very difficult and distinct projects.
Absolutely.
So, all right, great. Well, thank you both so much. I learned so much, and I unfortunately learned a lot, learned that I don't know still a lot more, but that's okay. This is a great start. So thank you both for all of your great work. And I hope that, I hope you succeed, and perhaps we'll be back again when there's an update to be given.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you
Nice
very
to
much.
see you
Take
both.
care.